Welcome to the Travel Business Unpacked, where passion meets possibility. Here's your host, Meredith Calloway.
All right. Well, welcome to our podcast, Travel Business Unpacked, where we are going deep with inspiring travel agency owners. Today, our guests, we have two guests. They are business partners. We have Emer Coughlin and Dervila Stivers of Celtic Hearts Travel. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Yep.
Great to have you. So, this podcast is all about going deep. That's why it's called Unpacked, right? Because if you're not unpacking something, you're just going to get at the surface level, and that is not the intention of what we're doing here. We want to hear your story. We want to go deep into your story, get to know you, and I know as soon as either of you open your mouth, everybody is going to love you because you two both ooze charm. So, Emer, why don't you start off and tell us a little bit about what you were doing before you started the travel business?
Okay. So, oh boy, I've had so many jobs over the years. But really, when I came to the United States, which was 1994, I started working with health and fitness company like gyms that kind of moved into exercise entertainment. And, coming from a little country like Ireland, moving to the United States, then with this job, I got to travel pretty much all over the world as a distributor manager, trade show coordinator, event planner. Even when the Olympics came to Atlanta in 1996, I worked with the Olympic Committee to do all the accreditations for our staff. So just tons and tons of different jobs. But really moving here to Atlanta and traveling was kind of the start of the pathway that I took with the career.
Fantastic. So, in you were not necessarily doing the job for the travel, but that was an absolute perk of what you were doing.
Yeah, it was like the best part. Just as I said, coming from a little country like Ireland, just to get to America and then to be able to go to all of these, different countries and experience all these cultures and the food. And I just loved it. I mean, I thrived on it. I loved working with the international distributors like Japan and Europe, Brazil, everywhere, and create all these great relationships with, foreigners. So I was a foreigner myself.
Yeah. And Dervila, tell us a little bit about your before you decided to get into the travel business. What were you doing to really pay the bills and as a career before you found this journey?
Like Emer, well, we came to the Atlanta together and we both worked in corporate America. And I never forget the first interview I went for, and they were offering me the job and they said, and you will have 1 week's vacation every year. And I thought to myself, ooh, we're going to have to work around that somehow because that's not going to work. So worked in corporate, joined the same company as Emer in exercise entertainment sales, and like her, got to travel a lot. And then in 2005, myself and my family moved back to Ireland, where my daughter was born, and then moved back to Atlanta in 2012. And when I was in Ireland, I didn't work. I was fortunate enough to be able to stay home and mind my kids, and then moved back here in 2012 and started working for an amazing company in 2013.
I think I know. We'll get to that in a second. So would you agree that both of you, before you started on this travel entrepreneurial journey, you know the saying, don't most people work to live, but you should live to work, or is it the other way around?
Yeah, work to live, Work to
Yeah.
live, but not live to work.
Live to work.
Not live to work.
Yeah.
I like to say work to travel instead of travel to work.
Yes. That's a really
And
good
that's
one.
what I did. I worked so I could travel
Yeah.
before my own journey. And now I travel for work as a
Yeah.
part of my work, and it is my work. And then I love that. I love that. Would you guys agree that you did the little flip flop as well?
Totally.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
You were, I mean, I love that story about, because I did the opposite. Dervila, I worked in London for a few years and then came back to the United States. And when I got to London, they're like, yeah, you get 5 or 6 weeks vacation. I'm like, what?
Mhm.
Even executives at the like super 25-year level didn't get that kind of vacation in the United States. So
Yeah.
the culture shock sometimes hits you in the face.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how you guys know each other and how you ended up starting a business together.
Well, it's all Dervila's fault.
Well, we're both from Dublin, and we went all the way to New Jersey to meet each other about 35 years ago. So we were working there for the summers on the boardwalk in Atlantic City, and there was a whole group of young Irish people, and we all band together and hung out together. And when we went back to Dublin, Emer and I continued on with our adventures.
Yeah.
And then we applied for a work visa, and we both got it, and that led us to Atlanta.
It sounds a little bit like divine. It was like a divine thing that you both met at the same, summer abroad thing, and then you both got. And I know, like I said, I lived in London, and I had friends who were Irish, and how hard it is to get to win that lottery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was every year, and all my Irish friends would be like crossing their fingers, praying,
Yeah.
going to church, one time a year.
Yeah.
Praying the rosary.
So that's kind of cool. All right, so now let's hear about how this whole journey started to Celtic Hearts Travel.
Well, I'll start first because Dervila left for those years in Ireland, which I know we didn't do that till afterwards. But during I was working for corporate America, and I've always started with small companies, but the company grew bigger, and so then it was like a real corporation, and sorry, and I had to travel over to the UK a lot, and Irish people, and United Kingdom, and it was just, I dreaded it. I hated having to go. So I never done. I always worked hard for a job. It was always that, get a good job, stay with that, stay with that. So even when I came to the States in '96 with Dervila, it was still to get a job. So over the years, then, I became just a consultant basically because I was resigned during the 2007, 2008. And then I had my kids. So that really was a great opportunity to do a little bit of both as like a VA and on a part-time basis as a 1099 employee. My husband, fortunately, was working full-time. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of how I moved into the travel industry, just because I was working in the health and fitness, exercise, entertainment. And then a friend of mine owned a Disney agency, and she hired me on as a VA, and then that's kind of the start of it.
And a VA is a virtual assistant, just in case anyone listening doesn't know what a VA is. Yes, in fact, I remember those years. That friend referred you to my team, myself. I don't think I had a team.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were an amazing VA. You were like, she was bragging about you.
It's because I was doing all the work.
You are a great VA. And then Dervila. So tell us a little bit about starting with that great company in 2013.
So I moved back in 2012, and in 2013, I started looking for a virtual job. And Emer recommended a young and up and coming company called the Global Institute for Travel Entrepreneurs. They were looking for an event coordinator, and I had that experience in my background. So I applied for the job and I interviewed with Vanessa, and I came on board as event coordinator for Gift, and then naturally merged over to GTN. And that's where it all began.
Yeah, it is where it all began.
Yeah.
And so Dervila was actually at GTN when we started our travel MBA program. She was working for us as an event coordinator when we started the travel MBA program. And did you ever have any kind of like curiosity about it? Like, well, maybe I should be doing that program. Or did that not happen till later?
I remember exactly when it happened. It was the 2015 GTN conference in Mooresville. And I was sitting in the back of the room listening to the new members and their stories and how they arrived at GTN and Travel MBA. And they came from all walks of life. They were all ages, different backgrounds, different experiences. And I was so inspired after that meeting that on the drive back to Atlanta to Emer, I was on the phone and I was like, we got to do this. This is what we got to do. Lisa Fletcher and the Travel MBA and the support of the ladies. We can't go wrong. This is what we got to do.
I love it. I love it.
I was like, are you crazy?
So talk to me a little bit about that feeling of like, one of the things that I've heard from coaches in the past is, and I really like it, is like, how do I know if this is the right decision for me? And the answer that I love is, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And so what you're describing right now, Dervila, sounds like that knowing of hell yes, like yes, 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 yes. So talk to us a little bit about, what is that feeling like? You know, it's just, yeah. What is that feeling like? How did you know for sure?
I don't know. There was just something, and I can't explain it. I wouldn't be a very impulsive person, but I was never more sure of what I thought was the best thing for Emer and I, because we worked together in the past. We worked well together. We were the best of friends. We loved to travel. I just thought it was a great fit with her skill set and my skill set. I just thought it was perfect combination. And with the backing and the care I saw at GTN, I was not afraid to take that leap.
Yeah. 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 I mean, the idea in isolation might be very daunting, but having the idea and knowing that there is this very clear path and program that's going to guide me down this path is, I would say, you know, that makes or breaks the decision. And it was just kind of cool that you had been on the inside of it, and now you were like, wait a minute, I'm the ideal prospect here.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, you both definitely have very cool. Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about your complementary skills. Why you guys definitely operate, I would say, from my perspective, as a well-oiled machine. But it probably wasn't always like that, and you've had your ups and downs, I'm sure, as all teams do. Can you talk to us a little bit about what Dervila is good at, what Emer does, and how you kind of figured out how to work together?
You want to go first, Emer?
Sure. So I'm just a natural sales, like I'm an extrovert. I thrive on, just being around people. And, if I think about it really, I think I've been in some kind of, and I hate to say the word sales, but I've just been in that kind of a role. I've always thrived in those types of scenarios, where I love being out there and chit chatting. It's, so I would definitely be kind of the outgoing, like networking, all of that good stuff, the sales part of things. And sometimes, that what goes along with that, and Dervila would attest to this, is distraction, shiny objects and all that good stuff. But I think the excitement, so to hear Dervila so excited about starting a business, I mean, neither of us had ever owned a business before, but then when I think about it in certain other little ways, I was a little bit of an entrepreneur. If it was just, doing stuff for the PTA in the school, and, so you see those things coming out. Um, so yeah, I thrive on that. I love talking to people. I love listening and hearing what somebody wants to do and what kind of a trip they want. And like, it means a lot to make sure that we get everything, all their little bucket list things and extra little things. Like, it brings me joy to have somebody have the most amazing experience when they travel. So I think in a nutshell, and I'm a bossy boots too.
Well, you're the rainmaker. You love going out and going to
Yeah.
the events and finding the groups and finding more clients and just
Yeah.
putting yourself out there. So Dervila, if that's Emer, what is Dervila? What is Dervila good at?
Dervila's job is to keep a firm hold on Emer. No, seriously. I love the nuts and bolts of the business. I like the spreadsheet and, developing the forms and the nuts and bolts, really. But I also really thrive on putting trips together for clients and hearing their feedback when they come back and looking at the trip and presenting it to them and seeing their faces light up because we have all those little touches in place. And it's very, very fulfilling. It really is.
So let's go back a little bit because I jumped ahead because I was so excited about talking about, friends working together, because I think there's a lot of people who would love to go into business with their best friend. But and we'll get back to that in a second. But you went from, yes, like, let's do this together, to you're now in the top producers club. You are, a multi-million-dollar agency. And it didn't just happen like that, poof. So let's talk a little bit about the first year. What did that look like and what did that feel like to you?
Oh, do you
Wow.
want to go with me?
When we decided, January 1st, 2016, we started with the Travel MBA program. And we just went through every module by module.
Which is a 12-month program, right? So
Yeah.
you knew that you were going to be in this like beginning stages for a year and having your hand held down this path for a year.
And we, as Irish people, are rule followers. So we followed instruction after instruction after instruction. And we had a lot of fun trying to come up with our, the name of the company and our logo, and we enjoyed all of that. But we also dove into how to start a business, never mind a travel business. And that was there in the modules. So we just went through step by step and started to charge service fees. And that was so daunting at the beginning because, we were so new to the business, and we'd have discussions about before we'd hop on the call, because we'd have the intake form and we're going to have a call with the client, service fee based on what we know so far. Should it be like $25 maybe or $50? So, and we would explain our service fee, and this is the reason why we charge a service fee, and on and on and on. So that's
what's your famous expression?
Huh?
What's your famous expression?
Oh, it's based on the complexity of your trip. So that's what 2016 was like. We started off very gently and eased ourselves into it. And
And it sounds like a battle with that imposter syndrome, which is very, very, very common. So
Yeah.
even though both you're not even from the United States, so you were born and grew up in a different culture. You've traveled abroad extensively. You still felt like, but I'm not a professional yet. I'm in a program that's going to get me to be a professional, but I'm not that professional yet.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it really is interesting how much the entrepreneurial journey is going to push you outside your comfort zone and make you kind of face your biggest fears, your biggest doubts, pretty much from day one in.
Yeah.
Emer, tell us about your sense of. I know that in that first year, you guys had tremendous enthusiasm, and I really love the name and I love the message of your business. So that's kind of I think that was the good of 2016. And then there was the bad. So why don't you tell us a little bit of the good and the bad? And by bad, I just mean as an entrepreneur myself, that first year can be riddled with doubts. Like, am I ever going to make it? Are we ever going to get to where we think we're going to get to? And how you overcame some of those.
Yeah. Well, a lot of what Dervila said, it's funny because I had, written down notes myself on these questions. And one of the, things I wrote was imposter syndrome. And, we would both get on a call, like, no matter what at the beginning. So we're a team, right? So we're a team. So we'd get on a call with a client, but, I'd be tripping over myself and Dervila would be tripping over herself. And it was just like, nerve-wracking, you do feel like an imposter and like I'm not the expert, and what if they ask this and what if they ask that, and so I think just even like booking our first trip, and our first trip was a great trip. Actually, it was a really nice trip to Italy. It was like the first fabulous trip, and so we had some hit and misses, and I think that you just have you feel very you've no confidence, and you're double guessing yourself all the time, but then every little win is so great. And I think that for me, getting out and networking in person and like just the enthusiasm, because we're really fortunate, honestly. Once we open our mouths as Irish people, people are like, oh my god, I love your Irish accent, and I definitely want to go to Ireland with you. And so that part I really started to feel confident about and just jumped out. Sometimes of course we all feel uncomfortable going into a new group of people, but I just loved it and thrived on it. And they were the really good times. And I think just, having people come to us, like people coming from like a referral, when your first trip goes without a hitch, like you're up all night making sure everything's going to be okay. And yeah, we just started with one trip at a time, and learning what works and doesn't work, because, sometimes one of us might get off a call and not feel great about it, or, whatever, so it's just learning all those little nuances.
Yeah.
And remember getting that first repeat client. It was so exciting because we did okay the first time.
They want us back. They want to use us again.
Yeah.
I remember, I think this was a turning point for you guys. You tell me if I'm wrong, but I remember when you got your first really big group. And I want to, well, Emer, why don't you start? I feel like it had something to do with one of your networking groups that you were involved in. So tell us a
Well,
little
I
bit
think
about
it was even more than that, Meredith. I don't know if you remember, you probably do, but we came up to Charlotte for a mastermind, and we had, been trying, we really wanted to do groups, and, but we were looking to do, have other people be the Pied Pipers. So I think for us going to that mastermind, and, and you and Vanessa and Jen, I remember distinctly, and Dervila does too, and you're like, duh, you're the Pied Pipers. Like, so that was like, oh, you're right. We're trying to get all these other people to do groups, but actually, if we want people to go on a group trip, we need to bring them to Ireland and open up
Yes.
the hospitality. I always remember your words, like, what's the thing you do when you bring them to the pub or you have a cup of tea? It was a real light bulb moment for both of us, I think, wasn't it, Dervila?
Yes, very much so. And we came back from that mastermind meeting and we started to put together a trip to Ireland for the following September. And we went to Bookmore Travel Workshop then the following February. So we had our meeting with you ladies in December. In February, we were at the Bookmore Travel Workshop and we were talking to fellow advisors about what we were doing in September. And they were like, this September? We were like, yeah, this September. And I'm sure they thought we were nuts, but it worked out. We filled the trip and it was, that was the first
start.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that was the start.
I also remember a turning point for you that happened during the pandemic.
Yeah.
You know what I'm alluding to?
Yes,
All
absolutely.
right. So
Yeah.
tell us about that. That was a really cool way that you took advantage, of the pandemic.
Yeah. We were so excited, after doing our Ireland group, and then we were like, okay, we are going to do an Ama Waterways river cruise, and we're going to host a group on the river cruise. And so we were so excited, and we had it all set up for an in-person meeting at a winery, a wine room, and it was going to happen in April. And of course, that was in 2020 when we all know what happened. And so everything shut down in March, and we had actually just had a client appreciation party. I think, Dervila, that was the last event we got to do.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much everything shut down after that. So there was a special offer with Ama Waterways, and it was a new itinerary, Essence of Burgundy and Provence. So they didn't even have a marketing campaign for it, or like they didn't even have PowerPoint presentation. And the offer was going to end in April, special group discount. And we said, well, we can't market it because, everything shut down. So we appealed to AMA, and at the time, the AMA representative, we spoke to AMA, and we ended up presenting the whole thing on Zoom with the PowerPoint presentation. And we invited everybody and said, we're hosting this group trip. It was actually going to be, the original one was 2021. And they've extended this special group discount, but you have to buy in before, I think it was May, because we had to move forward a little bit. And I said, look, we all both did. If it's happening, we're going. And if it's not happening, we're not going. So you come with us because we're going, and it'll be fine, and we'll take care of everything, and you don't have to worry. And we filled the group.
And you filled the group, and it was awesome. So you guys, we have what we call at GTN now the come with me strategy, but that's because you two basically wrote the script for it.
And everybody was pent up because it was 2020. So the enthusiasm was just, it was wonderful to be talking about traveling again for us and for everybody who attended that meeting. It was great.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at GTN, we define entrepreneurial success as when your business affords you the freedom to do what you want, when you want, how you want, with whom you want. But it also affords you that sense of fulfillment because you're truly tapping into your own gifts, and you're able to use your gifts to make a positive difference in other people's lives, as well as financial satisfaction. Dervila, would you say that you guys have achieved entrepreneurial success where you have freedom, fulfillment, and financial satisfaction?
Yes.
At least a 7 or higher on each one of those.
So freedom for me is being able to not rely heavily on others for independence.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that being an entrepreneur gives you that,
Yeah. Well,
if that makes sense.
if you're a successful entrepreneur, which
Yes.
you are, but it's a journey too, and it's a long game.
Mhm.
It's not, I think there's a lot of people who think, oh, if I just invest in a program like the Travel MBA program, I'm going to be
Mhm.
successful for 6 months. And no, and I don't ever want anybody to get into this business with that expectation, because they're going to be very unhappy if that is their expectation.
Yeah.
Um, it is definitely a long haul, but if that is what you want, we have a path to getting there. And I think you guys made it obvious. You said that, like being at that mastermind meeting and having everybody else tell you, no, wait a minute, you don't need to find the Pied Piper. You guys are already your own Pied Pipers. Sometimes you need like
Mhm.
somebody, because your brilliance, I always say your brilliance is kind of like the tip of your nose that you can't see and everybody else in your life can't see it.
Yeah.
And you need others to point it out to you.
Yeah.
So having that kind of community is really important. So in closing, what I want to ask is, now that when did you feel like, wow, we are a success? You have a moment where you're kind of like, wow, I can really take this in now. We are a success.
Yeah. I think one of this year, especially, I mean, at the end of last year, I was like, wow, because it was a big milestone that we had crossed last year. And then looking at and about maybe June or July this year, we both were like, oh wow, and I know that's a number.
So
I know
June or
that's
July, you basically hit the sales threshold that you had made in all of 23. So
and
you
more.
you got to the same place in sales
Yeah.
in the first 7 months of the year.
Yeah. Yes. And more. And so I feel like that was a big, kind of like wow. And it's really put a push. I don't want to say a push because you can't force anything. I'm just saying I'm really excited about the future and some stuff that we have been doing this year that's new to us. That's like on the horizon that looks great as well. And it feels right. It's not, it just feels right. And we just got back from the conference, and that was just, for me this year, amazing, with just being intentional and observing and all of those things. I feel like we're there, we're ready for the next level, personally.
Yeah, love that. Love that. Dervila, what advice would you give someone else thinking about, this career and feeling like, I think I want to do this? What advice would you give someone, or what advice would you be giving the Dervila that, before this journey?
Wow. Well, two major things is let go of your imposter syndrome, because I think both of us carried that around for way too long,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't serve you.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is that when you start your business, start as you mean to go on. If you are going to charge service fees, charge them from day one. But another very important thing to me is that do not shop with your pocketbook.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to get your head around that. And it's
Yeah.
very important.
Mhm.
Very important.
Yeah.
Right. Because if you want to sell luxury, the odds are, no matter what your income bracket, the odds are you're going to be working with clients who have more means than you have to spend on
Mhm.
travel. And if you bring your filter of Well, I'd never spend anything. I'd never spend money on something like that. If you bring that filter,
Yeah.
you're not going to sell it.
No.
And you're going to
No.
stab yourself in the foot, right? Or
Hmm.
shoot yourself in the foot.
Hmm.
Yeah, that is very good advice. My guess is with your conviction and saying that you fell into the trap of selling from your pocketbook at first. And then when did you get that awareness?
Well, I think it was a gradual thing.
Mhm.
The more I was exposed to our partners, the more I understand what their business was and how they did things, my confidence started to grow with how
Mhm.
I could rely on them
Mhm.
to provide the experiences for our clients that I might never have experienced myself.
Hmm.
But I know we have access to them. And I've been very fortunate to get to experience some things firsthand with Emer between trips and top producer trips and everything. So I think it was a gradual thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's another way of coming from a long-term perspective is
Hmm.
you're not in this to sell a trip. You're in this to help people have incredible travel experiences, and you give them access to partners that they would never have access to. You have wisdom and an understanding of how to sequence a trip in a way that's going to be far more seamless and doable and relaxing as opposed to exhausting. You have wisdom of what you can do and what you can't do, what's reasonable, what's not, and just the education of. I mean, I have this conversation all the time with people in my family and friends of like, well, how much would it cost to, get a suite in the such and such hotel? And I'm like, yeah, that hotel, like just a regular room is going to be
Yeah.
in the thousands of dollars a night. And people are like, what? People spend that much money on travel? And I'm like,
Yeah.
it is sticker shock. There's a lot of sticker shock going on right now in the travel
Hmm.
industry. And you guys have the fun job of educating people about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just because you may not be in a position today to spend $10,000 a night on a penthouse suite in a fine hotel doesn't mean you have clients that wouldn't, and you shouldn't bring that filter to it. So I love that. I love that
Yeah.
piece of advice.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
Emer, any last words of wisdom, especially from the perspective, because what's unique to you two is you decided to start this business together. Um, any words of wisdom on um, a, a, a solid partnership?
Yeah. Definitely. I think at the end of the day, everybody, we all have our bumps in the road. And at the end of the day, and I have that written down too, a relationship above everything else, you
Yeah.
know, um, there's always going to be times when we'll, come to not a crossroads, but, you'll come to like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And I think that you can't force anything. And if you it just works out that there may be some, not conflict at all. I just don't mean that conflict, but there may be some difference of opinion or different thoughts. But generally speaking, it'll come together where we're both in the right place to be able to move forward, and it happens. I feel like us, we go do 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 do, and then and then jump. That's just the way it's been for us. Would you agree, Dervila?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then one other thing I think is really important is that um, you can't compare your step one to somebody else's step 10. And I've heard it so many times, and I really get it. And I really, you know, for new agents or people just coming into the business, it's like, do you and do your business, because it's never going to be the same as anybody else's. And sometimes you might think, oh, I'm only this. And then somebody else will say to you, oh my gosh, you guys are amazing. you did this, and you're just like, oh, okay, like really be kind to yourself, be gentle on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just keep going. Like, even if you're just offering one little extra experience, if you don't think somebody can afford a massive, big, high-end trip, then maybe be mindful of their budget, but then maybe just serve them with one experience and say, if you really want to splurge, this might be awesome for you, and then they get a taste of that. So I think if you can feed people, breadcrumbs,
Yeah.
get them there because nobody wants to
Fantastic.
go back.
Yes. Yes. I love it. Well, I want to end with a congratulatory note. One of the things we've been diving deep into is Host Agency Reviews has just released their hosted advisor report, where they look at a lot of things, but both of what they're looking at is how much are travel advisors making, and I would like to say that we took their numbers and we looked at our numbers, and the everyone in the top producers club, the average income generated by each agency in the top producers club is 5.5 times their average.
Wow.
Uh, so you guys are far from average, and I want to congratulate you for that. And I hope you own it. So
Thank you.
thank you so much for sharing your story and being an inspiration. And I hope you guys inspire someone today or in the future, to take the leap and, ultimately build a business and life they love around a passion for travel.